Hi everyone, I'm Rincey and this is Rincey Reads. Today I thought I would do a quarter 1 reading wrap up, just talking about the books that I've read so far this year, just how my reading in general has been going. I especially thought that this would be good to do because I haven't been doing monthly reading wrap ups this year, and so I feel like a quarterly wrap up makes sense with the rate and pace of my reading this year, and just a good way to check in with you guys about how things are going. So I'm recording this on March 31st, and as of today I have read 12 books so far this year, which honestly I'm really happy about. I genuinely thought I would only be reading maybe 2 books a month just because of the way that my reading has been going. And so far I've been keeping about 3 to 4 books a month. Obviously with the 12 books, that's averaging out to 4 books a month. What's really happening is I'm closer to the 3 books a month range, but then I took some time off in February, and so I was able to get in a little bit extra reading and things along those lines. So it's averaging out to about a book a week, which I think is fantastic. I'll put up 2 of the graphs from Storygraph that I think are kind of the most interesting in my opinion. One of them is moods, which is obviously very subjective and very much based on just kind of how people are inputting data about the books. The other one that I think is interesting is a genre one, just seeing how it is in quarter 1 and then seeing how it evolves as the year continues, I think will be really interesting. But yeah, like I said earlier, I've read 12 books so far this year, and honestly I think that is a really good pace for me. The other thing that I've been doing, which if you've been paying attention to my channel at all, you've realized, is that I'm doing basically book reviews on every single book that I'm reading. Well, you might not have known that it's every book that I'm reading, but basically every book that I complete, I do a book review on. There's only been 2 books so far this year that I haven't done book reviews on, both of which I'll talk about later in this video. And then with the pace of my reading and the pace of my video making and editing and all of that stuff, I tend to be around 3 weeks behind in terms of when I finish a book and when the book review actually goes up, which honestly I'm fine with. I've been really happy with the way things have been going with reading and video making and things along those lines. My reading hasn't been amazing, out of the park or anything like that. I do think it's been better than average, partially because I've been getting a lot of books from the library, and so I don't feel bad when I get a bunch of books from the library and I start reading them and I don't like them, or I just feel like it's not for me, or it's not for me at that time, things along those lines. And so I feel like that's leading to better outcomes because I don't have any sort of pressure to finish a book. And so I could really just figure out what my mood needs at that specific point in time and then find that and start reading it. Sometimes it's a little bit frustrating when I pick up 4 books and none of them seem to be working, but when a book clicks, then it really does click. The other nice thing about the way that I've been making videos and doing all of that stuff is that it very much works better with my schedule now. I know book reviews are less popular, generally speaking, than other sorts of videos here on BookTube, but for me personally, it's been working really, really well for a number of different reasons. One is that I don't feel any sort of pressure in terms of how I talk about a book. Previously, when I was doing wrap-ups and stuff like that, I was very aware of the fact that I had a time limit to a certain degree. I would try to talk about books rather quickly because I was talking about a lot of books at one time, especially on the back half, having to edit videos that are 30 minutes to an hour long. That's really exhausting for me personally, and just the way my life is set up right now, it takes so much more for me to edit wrap-ups. Whereas with book reviews, my book reviews, I'm probably averaging in terms of the final product anywhere from 8 to 10 minutes for a book review, which I feel is a really good amount of time if you're not doing a pretty significant deep dive into a book. And I think that allows me to really talk about whatever it is I feel like talking about without feeling any sort of pressure to rush. And then on the back end of things, when I record those videos, they're usually in the 15 to 20 minute mark in terms of unedited footage, and that is much easier to edit down, so it fits more nicely within the way my life is currently scheduled or structured. Yeah, it just makes it possible for me to be able to get out videos consistently, whereas with wrap-ups or anything that takes longer, like vlogs, you need to have the time to dedicate to editing as well as recording and all this stuff, whereas right now I can find 30 minutes once a week to sit down and record a video, and then find another 30 minutes to an hour to edit that video. That seems more realistic. And then the other nice thing about it, because I'm currently in this time frame where once I finish a book, it's usually around 2 to 3 weeks before I post that video. Sometimes I'm batch recording, which also works out really nicely because I'll have an hour and I can record 3 book reviews and then edit them out and get them uploaded when I have the time over the course of the next month. So yeah, I'm really enjoying the way things are going right now. My views on each individual video is not necessarily like the best. I feel like the quality of the views are a lot better. When I do get comments on those book reviews, I feel like they're engaging comments, and so I really enjoy that. And also sometimes my book reviews actually do pretty well. I posted a review of Heaven and Earth's Grocery Store by James McBride earlier this year, and that video is doing stellar for me in terms of like how many views it's getting, and I don't quite understand why. I mean, I know it's a popular book, but it's been very surprising to see how many views that video has gotten in the 3 months that it's been up so far. The other thing that I've been doing this year is the TBR Spin, which if you didn't watch the original video where I talked about that, it's like this little game that Freshly Read Books and the Book Bully are hosting, where they spin this digital wheel that has a bunch of prompts on it, and based on that prompt you pick a book to read. And that's been really fun to do because it's just like a fun way to read the books that are on my physical TBR that I may not have picked up otherwise. And so far I've been doing it every month. The most recent one, the one for March, I'm probably DNFing, but I've been recording like YouTube shorts or recording like just short form video in general to show what book I'm picking. So if you've been seeing my shorts, that's what's happening there. But yeah, I really enjoy that process. It's just like a nice fun way to pick up a book or to have a reason to pick up a book, which I've been enjoying. And so I feel like that's been going really well. So what I thought I would do for the last part of this video is just like quickly run through the books that I've read so far this quarter. Like I said, I basically have book reviews up for all of these, so I'm not going to do more than just like a sentence or two talking very briefly about my thoughts about the book. And then if you want more of my thoughts or feelings, you can always check out the book reviews. They're always like spoiler free, and I try to be like pretty vague in terms of plot and just talk about like my experience with reading the book more than anything. So if you're overly concerned about plot spoilers, you shouldn't really be. And then I can talk about the 2 books that I haven't reviewed so far, and I'll talk about why when I get to them. And then I will also tell you about like the couple of books that I've read that I will be having book reviews up in the next couple of weeks, so you guys can look forward to that. So the first book I finished this year was The Heaven and Earth Grocery Store by James McBride, which I just talked about. Really enjoyed my experience with the book. Very happy to pick up a James McBride book again after enjoying The Good Lord Bird, and this one really did live up to the hype. Next, I picked up Much Ado About Nada by Uzma Jalaluddin. This is the first book I picked up for the TBR Spin. It's a modern retelling of Persuasion by Jane Austen, but it takes place in Toronto and follows this like Muslim girl who has to confront an ex of hers, or like this guy who she has a relationship with, but no one else in her family knows really, or no one else in her life really knows about this relationship. And it was a really interesting retelling in my opinion. Next was Monsters, a Fan Dilemma. This is a nonfiction book and a collection of essays that explores like what to do with the pieces of art that you love once you realize that the person who created this piece of art or was involved with it actually did really horrific things. And so it talks about like that whole discussion around separating the art from the artist, but I think does it in a really like unique way that as someone who's really sick of that conversation, I still found this book really well done. Next, I picked up Martyr, which is a new release for 2024 that I feel like has been getting a decent amount of hype, at least in literary fiction spaces. I like this one. I didn't love it, and I go into the details of this in that book review, but I thought that it was really well written, but there were like certain small details about the book that I just was not a fan of. Next was The Will of the Many, and this is a fantasy book that I saw a lot of people talking about at the end of last year. A lot of people, I feel like, put it on their favorite books of 2023 list. And so I picked this one up, and I was very pleasantly surprised by this one. I thought it was a lot of fun. I think that if you're someone who likes magical school stories, you know, this new dark academia trend sort of thing, I think that this is definitely one worth checking out. Then I picked up Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies, another one that was on a lot of people's favorites of 2023 list. So I checked it out. Really fun, cozy fantasy story. I read it while I was on vacation. I was like, yes, this is the perfect vacation book. Come and Get It by Kylie Reed was a book that I was really looking forward to because I picked up such a fun age. This one, very well written, and you could tell like Kylie Reed is very skilled as a writer and talking about certain topics in really unique and nuanced ways. But I just felt like she didn't quite stick the landing when it came to this book, and it let me down just a little bit. And then there was What Strange Paradise by Omar Al-Akkad. I also picked up Omar Al-Akkad's debut novel, American War, when it came out and really, really loved it. So I was very excited to pick this one up, even though I'm definitely behind on picking this up because I didn't realize it was out. But absolutely enjoyed this book. Really beautiful, really heartbreaking, but also very hopeful discussion about the refugee crisis that's happening right now in our world. And then the two books that you can look forward to reviews on are Wandering Stars by Tommy Orange and The Great Divide by Christina Henriquez, two more books by authors where I loved a previous book from them. So those reviews will be out soon, so you can look forward to that to see my thoughts on it. All right, now the two books that I haven't talked about yet that I read this quarter. The first one is a graphic novel. It's like graphic nonfiction. It's called Papaya Salad. This is a book that I picked up last year during Free Comic Book Day, and it just grabbed my attention because the way that it looks, it has these bright orange end pages. I was like, this just seems really interesting. So this graphic novelist is Thai Italian, and she is basically telling the story of her grandfather? No, great uncle, who was originally from Thailand and ended up basically getting sent to Europe during World War II. And so you just get to hear a little bit about his life story. It was like a very sweet story, and like you can tell is just like done as a tribute to her uncle, just telling his story, what it was like being of Thai descent in Europe during that time period. He meets his wife while over there and things along those lines, and it's just like really well done. Like the illustrations and the art style I think is really, really beautiful. I just thought it was like very unique in the way that it was set up. I love the just like colors, and the just everything about this is just like visually beautiful. The story is very unique as well and very interesting, but it is just very much a snapshot of this very specific moment in time for this very specific person. There was like this sense of like when I got to the end of it where I was like, oh, that's just it. It's not his whole story. It's not even like a strong snapshot of what it was like for everyone during that time period, which is fine. Like that's totally fine. But I was just like, oh, I thought this would at least like go up to when he got older or something along those lines. But it very much is just like a small snapshot of this period of time that I think is like a very unique perspective, especially for when it comes to World War II stories and things like that. The art is beautiful. This idea of the papaya salad plays a part through the whole story as well, which I thought was really well done. There's a surrealist nature to the way things are written and things are drawn, which I thought was well balanced with telling the story itself. So I feel like this is a really well done graphic novel. I feel like if you are someone who enjoys graphic nonfiction, graphic memoirs, this one is worth picking up. And then the other book that I picked up was The English Understand Wool by Helen Dewitt. I went and saw Ann Patchett speak last year while she was promoting Tom Lake. Because she has a bookstore, she did this thing at the end of her talk where she's just like, okay, now I'm just going to tell you about a bunch of books that I've read that I really think more people should read. And it was fantastic. It's one of the reasons why I picked up Absolution last year. And this was another one of the books on the list that had caught my attention. There's just a lot about this book that I really enjoyed. One is the fact that like I put the book on hold without really knowing anything about it. It just had a very unique synopsis. And then when I got it, I was like, this is a very unique like setup for a book. Like it looks like a children's storybook, which this is published by Storybook ND. So like this in and of itself is like packaged very uniquely. And then like the synopsis is very unique. And the reading experience for this, I feel like, was also very unique. The reason why I didn't do a full book review of this one is because it's so short. I didn't know how to talk about this book in a way that was meaningful other than to be like, please just pick this up, because I think a lot of people would really like this. This is one of those books where personally, I think the less you know about it going into it, the better off you are. And it's also a book where I feel like you have to just trust the process, because that's how I felt. Like in the beginning, I was very much just like, what is going on? What is happening in the story? And because it's relatively short, like I think it's less than 100 pages, just trust the process and just read it and see where you land at the end of it. Because I thought it was really well done. So the thing I will tell you about this story is that this story is told from the perspective of a 17-year-old girl who has an French mother and an English father, I believe, but they are living in Marrakesh, and she has been taught, you know, the way upper class people are often taught about like certain ways of living and certain ways of doing things and things like that. And like during Ramadan, you give your servants extra time off and things like that because it's Ramadan and those sorts of courtesies almost. And then one day everything in her life pretty drastically changes and you just kind of follow her story from there. And it's just a really well done, really well structured story that's very difficult to talk about without just like full on discussing it, full on getting into spoilers and things like that. But I think that this is a book that a lot of people would really enjoy. I think that it's just a very uniquely structured story. It's so clever and so witty, and it's just like, just go into it as blind as possible. Like I said, it's less than 100 pages, and so I just feel like just give it a chance, especially if you can get it from your library or something like that. Like, it's definitely worth giving it a try and seeing how you end up with it. Like, I think I'm gonna buy my own copy of this book because I enjoyed it so much. So yeah, that's how my reading has been going so far this year. I'm really happy with it. I feel like things have been going pretty smoothly, fitting very well into my life and things like that, because I feel like I haven't been stressing out about like reading and getting videos done and things like that. I feel like I have a pretty nice balance. I've been taking things relatively slowly and putting less pressure on myself. Like, genuinely making the New Year's resolution of only reading 24 books this year really did take a weight off of my brain. Because if, for example, there was an update made to a video game like, say, Stardew Valley, and I wanted to start a new save file and I wanted to spend more time playing Stardew Valley than reading, I'm fine with it because I've already read more than I've expected to so far this year. And so if I want to spend the majority of my week playing Stardew Valley, totally cool. And it's been nice to just kind of realign my priorities and making my like goals and things like that just realistic for the stage of life that I'm in right now. And it's just made reading and making videos and all of that stuff just so much more enjoyable for me personally. So yeah, I'm really happy with the way the first quarter has gone. Hopefully we can keep things going in a very positive direction for the rest of the year. So yeah, that's everything I've got for this video. Let me know down in the comments below if you've read any of the books that I talked about here today, or just let me know down in the comments below how your Q1 has gone. If you have a book that you've really enjoyed so far this year, let me know down in the comments below, because obviously always keeping my eye out for the things that people are really enjoying. So yeah, that's all I have for now, and thanks for watching.